Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the stream. As always, I am Zach Lane, aka Judge Zed, aka Zacharias the Pious of House Lane, first of his name, former Lord of Give a Shit a Sheer, Harbinger of Sass, and Unholy Prince of the Sea of Ash, as well as Lord of the Game. And today I want to talk to you about the Traveler role-playing game, sci-fi role-playing games in general, as well as how they differ from the usual fantasy fare. I was sent a question by Lev, who played in the Chrono Runners campaign. If you're able to check that out on YouTube, it was just a quick one shot. But his question was, what tips and insights do you have about prepping Traveler sessions/campaigns? I have extensive 5e DMing experience, and I want to start running some Traveler stuff, but have not run Traveler before. I'd love some advice since you have experience. And about a year and a half ago, I was in the same position where I had never played Traveler before. I was more interested in Cyberpunk, but I had heard that Cyberpunk's character generation was sort of inspired by Travelers, and I wanted to see alternative character generation styles. I ended up falling in love with Traveler. Much more than I expected to. It really caught my imagination. I'm just going to let Lev know I'm putting this up on YouTube for him. So, let's jump right into it. What makes Traveler different than Dungeons & Dragons? Well, it's a sci-fi, D&D's a fantasy, so... And it's also in the far future. The majority of the time, Traveler games are going to take place in the far future, in a point where humans are able to travel anywhere they want in the galaxy. You know, it just takes a little bit of time. If it takes you a year, but you can get from like one end to the other, or it takes 500 years, you can still do it. Generation ships exist, usually in some sort of galactic empire, not unlike Star Wars or Star Trek. Although Star Trek calls it I believe it's the Federation. The United Federation of Planets. So whether it's a United Federation of Planets, whether it's an Imperium, whether you're using a homebrew system or the Traveler Third Imperium setting, it's important to remember what makes these things different. What makes them a different flavor. And I think for the most part, I would say my biggest advice is the planets. I think any real Traveler game should have at least 100 worlds in it. And what I mean by 100 worlds is I mean that even if you're, well, let's jump over here. Let's go to the Traveler map, and let's think about one of the earliest campaigns we could do in the timeline, because the timeline is, for Traveler, it's very extensive. It's just as extensive as the system itself, and the expansion of the galaxy is mapped out quite well throughout the different editions of Traveler. Now, that's the caveat here is you do have to go through different editions and different canons to get your best understanding of what's going on here. There we go. And what we're looking at here is the Traveler map. This is the Great Rift, and I don't have political. I don't have anything turned on right now. Let's get galactic directions. We'll put the sector grid on there. We'll get sector names. We'll do borders as well. And I want to set this to the Interstellar Wars period, which is going to cut us off from a lot of the map because it's just going to be pretty much the Solomani Rim. So this is the earliest periods of human expansion. And I'm not going to get too deep into the timeline here, but if you were just running from the earliest point of the far future, a campaign that was set exclusively in this like Terran Federation of the Solomani Rim, where this is Earth, this is Alpha Centauri, and the closest worlds, It's at a low technology level. I'm not even 100% sure if they have jump drive tech at this point. I think jump drive tech is invented like during one of the wars, or is discovered, or we reverse engineer it. I don't quite remember. But each one of these is not just a planet. It is a solar system, and solar systems have multiple worlds. So even if you're just running a tight cluster, there should still be like 50 worlds here, 50 planetoids. Many of them are going to be uninhabited. But this is where you have to think here. These uninhabited planetoids are the dungeons or the like wild lands in D&D. While there will be like frontier worlds that have, you know, wide expanses of maybe even unexplored terrain, or terrain that is blocked off from normal people going there, I would just say be really cognizant of the worlds in Traveler and how many there actually are. How many of them there actually are. There should be, you know, there's billions and billions of stars. There's probably trillions and trillions of worlds. Adventures that highlight this. Mongoose 2nd edition, Mongoose 1st edition, Traveler Compendium 1. The adventure is called The Laval Affair. I believe it's written by Gareth Haranrahan. And it is an adventure specifically written to be able to be put into any campaign, because every world in this adventure is actually a secondary world to the main world of the solar system. So we'll just, you know, use Earth as an example. You know, we've got Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Neptune, Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus, the whole 9 yards. They're all out there. Maybe even in the future, we're probably not living on Jupiter, but Jupiter's a Jovian world and has probably more moons than we're currently aware of. And some of those moons may have liquid water on them. Some of those moons may be more habitable than the other planets in our solar system. Maybe not Earth, but they might be more habitable towards life than, like, any of the other planets, but they're a satellite. But because Jovian worlds are so massive, they have all of these moons. And they can have undiscovered moons as well, or moons that have just recently shown up and got caught in their orbit. Like, there's a whole... Space is big. That's my second tip here. Space is big. And keep in mind the scale of space and the scale of the objects in space, as well as the distances, because there's a lot of distance. And I would say the biggest tip towards that aspect is the game will be kind of split into different modes of play. So there's the role-playing mode where they're on a planet, and that's always going to be something new and exciting. Hopefully. It should be. It should be always something cool and interesting. Even if it's just like a crappier version of a starport that they're familiar with, or like starport businesses that they're used to. Like, oh, they have an Astro Burger here, but this Astro Burger is just a vending machine, and it 3D prints the food in the vending machine and then serves it to you. They don't have like even a sit down area because this is such a crappy, you know, Frontier. It's like there probably wouldn't be an Astro Burger on a Frontier installation, but potentially on a like a D class starport. Maybe they, with you know, one that's just like a dirt runway, and then they have like a little like pavilion with a couple of just a couple of automatic vending machines for whatever you want. So definitely think about that. So the other thing, the way that this ties into the distance in space and the size of space, is the other half of the game that is pretty much going to be half of the game, is they're going to be on board their ship. So I always plan a planetary encounter and adventure, and then something that happens on board the ship. Just literally, there's tables out there. Let's see if I can find it. Traveler jump space encounters. So jump space, the weird thing is, you're probably aware in Traveler, is that jumping from one point to another always takes a full week. So what happens during that week? Well, my one answer has been that's when the holodeck episodes happen. And holodeck episodes can be real fun. Don't get me wrong. But this is a table that, for weeks when you're not going to plan out a full holodeck session, because I think those are kind of like, those should be the exception, not the rule. This is a really great table, and I've got a big thing of dice. Let's go ahead and roll on it. Let's just roll on this table. Traveler's D6 system, so we're going to use these Ultra Pro D6s that I was telling everybody about before. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to roll one D6. We got a 2. So one thing, roll once on either table. So we have out of the ordinary occurrences, and then we've got slightly stranger things. I'm going to do out of the ordinary occurrences, and I got a 56, which here says, crew members discover shared friend, which is a really interesting thing. Like, that could be maybe one of them's telling a story about a contact. This is another thing that can happen and has happened in my Traveler game. Crew members know similar contacts. They share contacts during character creation to increase a skill, basically. They have to find a common ground to help tie them together. And exploring one of those shared connections can be a great thing to happen during that week aboard the ship. With the distances, I mean, like, traveling in between planets in a solar system can sometimes take just as long as a week, as like a full jump, which is kind of a bummer, but it has to be that way, because space is real big, and if they don't have the maneuver drive to thrust them faster, they're just not going to make it very quickly, especially aboard a Far Trader or a Beowulf class. So I would say definitely plan that stuff. Be aware of the planets, be aware of the time that they're going to spend in their ship, off the planets, if that is the kind of campaign you're going to run. And my final word of advice, which is going to be more universal, not just for a Traveler campaign where it's in the far future and you're jumping around and you're trading, and or you're even like, going from planet to planet. Even if you're just running like a Chrono Runners campaign where you never leave Earth, you're just jumping to different time periods of Earth. The character creations in Traveler is so in-depth and gives so many elements and moving parts to a character's backstory and makes it so detailed that keep that in mind. Take notes on character generation and take notes on things that have happened in your character's past, and think about doing some flashbacks. Flashbacks can be really fun and great ways to like flesh out more of a character. And flashbacks don't necessarily have to be a full session. They can be a half session, or I've had really good results with a flashback in like almost like the PTSD sense, where a character, like, something triggers them, and maybe their partner or another like close friend, and they end up opening up to that character about some really terrible thing that happened in their past. And that has been super like moving at the table, especially if you time it dramatically. Especially if you just jump cut into it and you have this tender moment between these two characters. It can be really like, it's the closest I've ever gotten to making myself cry running a role-playing game. But so yeah, those are my 3 top tips for running Traveler and sci-fi role-playing games in general. Is Be aware of the planets, because they're going to take place of like the nations of origin and the nationality and like the cultural background of your characters. So if they're on their home world, think about how important that is and how rare that is in a campaign where you're jumping from planet to planet. So coming home should be a special occasion, or at the very least an occasion that builds a lot of character background, or builds off of the character background. My second tip, be aware of the scale of space and how long it's going to take your characters to get around, and plan accordingly. Half the campaign is going to take place on a spaceship. I would kind of hope, because Traveler is the first role-playing game to create rules for building and operating spaceships, and it does those rules very, very well. And it's definitely a highlight of the game for me as a referee in Traveler, and just as a fan of role-playing games in general. My third tip: the character creation in Traveler is amazing. You can die. You can actually die. That someone posted to the Traveler Reddit not too long ago, like, I was generating my character and I took an injury that took like 4 points off of one of my stats, but that was my dump stat, and now I have -2 points in this stat. Does Traveler have mods for negative stats? What is this? What happened? And the first comment is, of course, congratulations, you've died during character creation. And dying during character creation is possible in every edition of the Traveler game, except maybe GURPS Traveler. I don't know. I shouldn't even say that, because that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous hyperbolic statement. But dying during dying in Traveler during character generation is a key feature of the role-playing game, and the character generation in general, as it's a mini game within the game, just is perfection, really. Use it, take notes on it, take notes on your characters, and you're going to run an amazing Traveler campaign that will be the talk of your role-playing group and your local game store. Like, you'll be the talk of the town. My last bonus tip. Hell, I almost forgot this one. This is the most important one. Sci-fi. What is it? What is sci-fi? And get in on it. Get in on sci-fi in a big way. And I'm not just talking about, like, don't just watch sci-fi movies or like read sci-fi popular sci-fi novels, because then you're gonna do the same old stuff. Check out clarksworld.com. They have an audio podcast version of their magazine, but they are contemporary sci-fi by new authors, international authors, who are going to give you really good ideas to put into your Traveler game that your players probably aren't going to know about, because they're probably not going to be geeking out on this stuff as much as you. And you need to, like, if that doesn't interest you, go on YouTube and look up some sci-fi nerds, look up some computer geeks and stuff, and start looking at some thought experiments or just weird out there theoretical scientific ideas, and start thinking up a campaign based around them. I don't want to give too much away, but there are some excellent thought experiments revolving around AI and the human race. They're pretty terrifying, some of them. And I think that those have been my biggest inspiration for writing this current Traveler campaign that I'm doing, that is also based heavily on the plot threads left behind in the TPK from the last Traveler campaign. And so my fifth and final tip is going to be, like, embrace death as a feature of this game. Don't worry so much about bringing characters back who die. Character generation is fun. And if you get the short end of the stick, if you get the short end of the rake or whatever, like on character generation, if you have a character who wants to replay, like they're like, oh, can I just try again? Tell them no. Like, no, just stick with that, and then when you die, you can reroll. And then characters who, they'll be, like, more willing to die, they'll understand death is, like, a pretty common thing in this game, because it really is. And then just throw, like, some dangerous shit at them. Like, put them in a bad situation and see what happens. They might not even be the one to die. They may go on to live and be like, no. I love playing this stupid character, this nerfed character. I feel bad for John in my current campaign, who's playing, oh god, what is his, I don't want to look it up right now. I don't want to pull up, if I look it up here, it's going to have, spoilers. But his character is, he got the prisoner background, because he tried to go criminal, and he never succeeded, with the criminal career path, and so he spent, I think, 2 terms in the prisoner path. And then another term in the criminal path. Maybe it was just 1 term in prison, but it didn't go super great for him. And now he's being hunted by some kind of space detective, like Flatlander, whatever his name is, Gil Hamilton, I think, from space, from the Larry Niven stories. If you're into the classic sci-fi like of Larry Niven, I would say check out Larry Niven. If anything else, he's great. H.P. Piper's really good. Little Fuzzy's an awesome story. There's plenty of classic sci-fi that Traveler's directly based on. But yeah, just check out your, check out your historic sci-fi stuff. Look at the old stuff. Look at the new stuff. Look at the stuff in between. Look at the stuff people aren't really looking at. And start thinking up ideas of your own and like figuring out ways to do it. John's character is Sirius Galaga, and he is wanted. Sirius Galaga Earnhardt, maybe? Yeah, it looks like. Prisoner number 219734626. He's a convict. The detective who's after him knows Johnny. And I feel like if he gets caught and goes back to jail, that... It's gonna be really interesting, because I have an idea, and I've had an idea for a while. There's an amazing adventure for the original Traveler role-playing game that was adapted for the Traveler, Mongoose Traveler First Edition, and it hasn't come out during Second Edition yet, but you can always just, adapt it yourself. The 2 editions aren't all that different. I think there's couple of different skills you may have to be aware of that changed, but it's nothing too earth-shattering. So yeah, look, the prison planet. If John gets caught and turned over by the crew, which he very well may, hopefully they learned a thing or two in the last session or the last campaign. We're gonna play Prison Planet. He's gonna go to jail, and then I'm gonna have the other characters roll up prisoners, and so we'll do like, a couple episodes on the Trojan Reach, a couple episodes on the Prison Planet, a couple episodes of Trojan Reach, a couple episodes on the Prison Planet. We're just gonna go back and forth. And I'm just excited about that. So, I guess for now, that's it. Be aware of the planets, be aware of the scale, be aware of your characters, be aware of sci-fi, and be aware of how frequent death exists in this system. I mean, you can die in character generation, the characters are hella squishy, healing takes time, healing takes medicine. Not every ship has a doctor, it should, but it doesn't always. Leave that up to your players, let your players make mistakes, let your players kill themselves. And then figure out interesting ways to continue their plot threads with new characters and the same ship, if possible. I think that's a cool feature, is like this idea in my mind of like each campaign is following the ship instead. Like we have the new crews, new paint jobs on the same old crusty wagon that they're kicking around the stars. But so yeah, one more time, my top 5 tips for running Traveler and sci-fi role-playing games in general. Be aware of your planets. Be aware of your scale. Be aware of your players and their characters. Be aware of sci-fi and science, theoretical science in general, and all that good stuff. And be aware of death and how frequent it happens and how little it really matters when the scale is so great. You know, the individual, you know, it's that's why the great sci-fi epics have timelines that span thousands of years. The Foundation, Dune, those are the two that I can think of right now. But hell, I mean, even Traveler is a game that spans thousands of years of history, and it all matters. Like, every sector has a backstory, and every planet has a history, and who settled it first, and was there anybody there, and, you know, how did that go? Was it like, how space colonialism is it gonna get? I don't know. It's all up to you. It's your galaxy, and your way to run it. But those are what I keep in mind when I'm running a sci-fi role-playing game. And I hope that you've enjoyed this little my TED talk on running and telling sci-fi stories in a shared tabletop experience. I recommend checking out Traveler, the role-playing game. It's a very fun, very classic, old-school style sci-fi role-playing game. It's a lot of fun. It really feels right. It feels good. Traveler. All right. As always, I've been Zach Lane, aka Judge Zed, aka Zacharias the Pious of House Lane, former Lord of Give-A-Shit-A-Sheer, Harbinger of Sass, and Holy Prince of the Sea of Ash, and Lord of the Game. Keep yourself hydrated. Keep rolling dice. And I hope you all have a good time. I'm gonna check the chat real fast, see if anybody's asked anything else of me. No, they haven't. Well, on that note, be well, stay safe.